Hello folks, you're listening to episode 16 of your favourite sports betting podcast, A Mug's Game, with your hosts, Smeg and Ronnie. That's right, we have the man back himself. Ronnie is back. The last time you were on the podcast, Ronnie, was pre-Premier League and All-Ireland Tournament final day, and we took a whole pile of bets that day, and we're probably best off starting the podcast by having a little review, because there were outright bets for the whole season, so we're going to have a talk about where they are or how they're faring out so far. Not just the Premier League, of course, there were some English Championship and League bets as well, so take it away yourself.
Yeah, we did. We had 7 or 8 outright bets at the start of the season. We can sit on them now and see exactly where they are. Some ones in good position, some ones are pretty much done and dusted in a negative way, but we're now, I suppose, we're over halfway through the season, and it's a nice time with say 3 months left in the season to nail down a few more outright bets, knowing exactly where teams are. And I suppose we spent the last few days trying to find value in that.
So which bets particularly now? So we'll go through maybe the ones that are dead and then the ones that are doing well.
Yep, well, dead ones, for example, points I had in the Premier League. I had 2 points on Harry Kane for top scorer. That's done and dusted. Yeah. Unfortunately, for he was doing okay, I suppose, and then the injury has nailed him. The bad hamstring injury, that was the end of that. Another one in the Premier League, which was a poor call at the start of the season, where I thought that West Ham would do well and might even be in a 7th position, and they're far from that. They've had a disaster. Pellegrini sacked, Haller didn't work out, hasn't been working out up front, and they're just an absolute mess now.
They're hapless, yeah.
In that case, another one in Premier League that didn't. They had a half point on Marco Silva to be the first manager to leave his post at Everton. The first man was actually a man you picked out, though, Watford's Javier Garcia, so that was a nice winner for the...
Yeah, it was 11-1 shot. In fairness, you were very unlucky, because wasn't Silva the second man to be sacked? So
he held on a bit, things weren't right there. And I suppose one other one that probably will be done in the Championship, I had a point on Birmingham to be relegated 5-1. They're actually doing better than I thought, and don't look like I think they're 10 or 11 points clear after winning last night, so those 4 ones will be gone.
Yeah, but sure, look at it, it's a 5-1 shot. It's at the end of the day.
They're my points. Looking ahead to some of the other ones, in the Premier League, I had 3 points on Norwich to be relegated at 11-10. That's in a good position at the moment. They're bottom of the league. I do think they probably deserve a few more points than they have. They haven't been scandalous by any means, but they're now, say, 7 points needed to get out of the bottom 3. With so many teams there, I suppose it's in a decent position. They're certainly not 11-10 now, I'll put it that way, so I'm happy enough.
Yeah, they're actually, I saw on the recent prices, they're 1-10 to get relegated at this stage.
So they're happy with that at the moment. In the Championship, I said I'd back Birmingham to be relegated. I had a point on Wigan to be relegated, and that's at 4-1. That's in a good position. They're in the bottom 3, have been for most of the season. They're 4 points behind Stoke, who are the next team to them. I think they will fight, but I think it's in 4-1. I'd say they're definitely odds on at the moment to be relegated.
And look, there's covering opportunities if it gets the squeaky bum time.
Yeah, there is. The one you possibly could cover are Charlton, who I think are probably the next worst team. They're 3-1 to be relegated. There's a 6-point difference. I'm happy to let it ride for the sake of a point, to be honest.
Yeah.
Otherwise, in the Championship, I have 3 points. A big enough bet on Fulham to be promoted at 2-1. They're actually playing tonight. They're in a good position. They're second or third and have been kind of that position all season, so they've a good chance of a top 2, and they'll certainly be in the playoffs at worst. And the last one, the Championship, is the one that's, I suppose, that's the most exciting one. I have a half point each way on Ollie Watkins of Brentford to be the top scorer at 33s. So he's 33-1, and the story is the moment is that he's 20 league goals. He's level with Mitrovic, and the next closest to them is Jared Bowen, who's now gone to West Ham. So really at the moment, it's a 2-horse race between Watkins and Mitrovic.
And you've got each way money no matter what.
Got each way money no matter what. At this stage, he's been consistent all season. The reason why at the time in August we said he was a great bet was because Mopé, he was kind of playing second string to Mopé, playing a bit to the side of him last year. But then Brighton signed Mopé at the end of August, and the manager made it clear they were going to play Watkins through the middle with 2 wingers either side, and they're a good side. So he's been consistent all season, has his 20 goals now, and it's just a head-to-head with Mitrovic for the last couple of months at 33-1. So that leads me in, I suppose, to you suppose you could call it a cover bet, because I don't think anybody else, the closest guy to them that's actually to Mitrovic and Watkins is Lewis Grabban of Notts Forest. He's on 15 goals. He's 5 behind. It's a lot to cover in whatever dozen games left. So I'm going to stake 4 points on Mitrovic to be top scorer now at 10 to 11. 10 to 11 for me. If Mitrovic is, it's a decent win to cover. And as I said, I'm going to get each way on Watkins anyway.
Yeah, because Watkins would essentially represent a 16-point win for you anyway. So like, it's only putting on the 4 points of Mitrovic means it's like you're going to get a 12-point profit, but or you get an extra 12-point profit if Watkins wins, along with the what do you call it?
Each way.
So that's 8. Yeah. So that's nearly, that's a 20-point profit.
Listen,
if he wins, 20-point profit, and if he doesn't, you get 12.
Yeah,
12,
it's the dream position. Really, it doesn't happen too often. But yeah, Watkins he's stayed fit all season as well, and he's actually a very good player. He's actually good enough to play higher. So yeah, delighted with that, the way that's going. As regards it, looking ahead now, Smeg, for the next 3 months, just saying that we're on the championship at the moment.
Well, just before you start there, I have to remember one of my own tips there. I didn't put on too many soccer tips. Obviously I had Grazia for Watford to be sacked first at 11 to 1, so I was delighted with that. I did tip him the year before, so persistence pays off.
Yeah,
but you know what
absolutely.
Watford are like as a club, they're so trigger happy.
They've had a few since as well, a couple since.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But Trent Alexander-Arnold, remember tipping him up at 7 to 1 to be the young player of the year, and that's well odds on now. Yeah. And in hindsight, I wish I had put on a bit more on it, because I was listening to our podcast that we did as preparation for this, just to go through the bets. Yeah. Just remembering all the reasoning, and we were looking through his potential rivals for the prize, and you're just thinking, Jesus, he was so obvious as a choice, because like Liverpool were always going to be flying it. Being English, he's English as well. And what you said at the time, 8 out of 11 young players of the year were English, and the fact that he's class. Exactly. But anyway, look, I had to do a little bit of boasting because when we get in soccer, I haven't got too many right in the past. So go on. You were talking about leading into some bets in the championship. Yeah,
if we look at the championship, there's one team that's worth really opposing for certainly next few weeks, if not months, and that's Hull City. They lost their 2 best players right at the transfer window. Both Jared Bowen went to West Ham and Kamil Grzycki went to West Brom. They're 2 players, like 2 attacking midfielders or wingers, and they just set up so many goals and score so many goals. So that really killed them, losing those 2 players. They've played 3 league games since. The first one they lost 5-1 at home to Brentford. They then drew 1-1 at the weekend, which was okay. And then last night they got hammered by Blackburn 3-0. They're really in bad nick. They probably have enough points not to be relegated. They're 10 points clear of relegation. But I'd certainly be opposing them in match bets from here on. Even this Friday night, they're home to Swansea, who aren't great, but they have a few. They've signed Ryan Brewster from Liverpool, the young guy. They've signed Conor Gallagher, who has having a good season with Charlton, and they have Andre Ayew. I think 2 points on Swansea to actually, you could back them to win the game Friday night at 11 to 10, or even to score 2 goals, which takes in a 2-all draw element, and you still win your bet. 2 points on Swansea. I'm going to go 2 points on Swansea to score twice against Hull on Friday night, and I'm probably going to be backing against Hull a lot in the next few weeks, just to keep an eye on them. They're really poor side now without their 2 best players. One other one in the championship, Smeg, while we're on it. There's a race, it's like no one wants to get promoted in the league this season, with Leeds and West Brom and Notts Forest here last night losing. There's so many teams there bunched. So if we look at the top 6 market, which is basically the playoffs, you can see there might be some value at the moment in Blackburn Rovers, who are 17 to 2. Most of the odds I put up there were Paddy Power, so a lot of people would be using Power, so I'm just going to give Power's prices. You might get slightly better fractions out there in other markets, but I'm just going to have 1 point on Blackburn to finish in the top 6 at 17 to 2. They won 3-0 last night. They've been up and down most of the season, like a lot of teams. They might win, draw, lose, but they've got good experience there with Mowbray's manager, with Stuart Downing, and if they've Bradley Johnson, and if they can get Bradley Dack back from injury and a few others, they're a decent side, and they're actually only 3 points off the playoffs, but they're not rated like that with their odds at 17 to 2 to cover that 3 or 4 point gap. So I'm going to have They actually showed before Christmas as well. In the field before Christmas, they had a run of 4 wins and a draw, so they are capable of putting a few wins together, and you have to do that. There's always a team that kind of gate crashes the playoff party in the last few months, and Blackburn might be value at 17-2.
But they've had a bit of a reputation over the last few years of being a bit soft. Do you think they have the, I suppose, strength of character, I suppose?
Yeah, well, I think that's part of the reason why Downey was brought there. He's actually having a great season. He's playing in midfield. They have Bradley Johnson, who's played with Derby. Those guys, Elliot Bennett, these are guys that were signed maybe for that reason. They have Charlie Mulgrew, another guy with good experience who's played in that league a while, and then Danny Graham, Adam Armstrong. They're probably a side that's where they are is where they are, but I just think 17-2 is a bit big. A bit big in the circumstances with everyone beating each other.
Yeah, exactly.
They could win 3 games in a row, and
that's fair.
That's why. So that's my 3 championship bets. 4 points on Mitrovic, top scorer, a point on Blackburn to get into that top 6, and just a match bet coming up Friday night. A pose and hold basically, and I'll be doing that for the next few weeks.
That's fair enough, yeah. And what about any other football league bets? We've been exploring the other leagues?
One other football league bet is in League 2. It's Salford City, who a lot of people know about, of course, from the documentaries with Neville and United guys at Class 92 and so on. They've actually let me down the last couple of weeks. Lucky enough, this podcast wasn't 2 weeks ago, Smeg, or we were down a few points. But just before the deadline, they decided to pump a load of money in again. Maybe they saw that there's a chance here to get into these playoffs in this league, because they're after signing 5 or 6 players who were playing at a higher level regularly just before the end of January. Now the thing is, they've come in and they've played 3 games since, 2 draws and a loss, and I'm thinking maybe I should have left it till after those 3 games, because it happened before. It often happens with teams when you buy a load of players in one go, they don't gel together straight away, especially this shitty time of the year and pitches and so on. It hasn't worked for me in the last 3 games, but they're actual player for player. They have really strengthened their squad. They have James Wilson, who used to play with United up front. Now they have Darren Gibson signed, but not even those guys. They've got lads who were playing regularly for Lincoln in League 1 this season, who were actually playing games. Andrade and Michael O'Connor and Tom Elliott from Millwall, guys who've proven records a league above this. And they've all come down. Obviously it's a financial decision out of them, and maybe living in Manchester as well, whatever, but they have a really strong squad. At the moment they're 11th. They're 9 or 10 points off the playoffs. I've backed them to reach the playoffs. If you want to back them now to reach the playoffs, they're actually as big as 22-1 because of losing last night, really. But what I'm doing is I'm having a big bet on them to come the top half, which is the top 12, because there's 24 teams in League 2. So to come the top 12, I'm having 5 points on Salford at 10-11 to come the top half.
And right
2.
Now they're in what position?
They're 11th.
11th, so they're already in the top.
So it's basically not to get, they're already in it. Yeah, narrowly I might add a point or 2 ahead of a lot of teams, but basically not to disimprove. It's basically what I'm nearly backing.
A 5 point
full on max bet, 5 points. So I'm going to
have to follow you when you're giving me max bets.
I'm going to go 5 points on Salford to be in the top half come middle of May.
Brilliant stuff. Okay, so you heard it here. You've heard the first 5 point bet we've had in the podcast in a long time. I don't even think we had a 5 point bet for the last podcast pre-Premier League. So 5 points on Salford at 10-11 to finish in the top half, and of course Swansea to beat Hull. 1 point in Blackburn top 6 to 17-2, and then the 4 points on Mitrovic, top scorer at 10-11. And I'm say if anybody has followed Ronnie on the 33-1 shot there, on what's his name, Ollie Watkins, you'd be very happy with that. And I suppose we would recommend you putting on the Mitrovic cover bet basically. So we're going to move on now to what about Premier League bets? Have you thought of anything there?
Look through the markets. I think that the league is it's almost like a championship in other seasons. It's very, very difficult to make out. I don't know who's going to go down, and that's who's going down and who's going to get in the top 4 are the tight markets with the League 1 and even the top 3 positions done. I don't have an outright bet on it. Do you have anything yourself?
Well, I was just looking at the whole relegation market there, and look, there's a lot of teams that are struggling and that are sort of in free fall there. But the one that really stands out to me is West Ham, and they're at 11-8 to get relegated. If you just look at the run of fixtures that they have, City, Liverpool, Southampton. Southampton's at home, but Southampton are in good form. Then it's Arsenal, Wolves, Spurs, Chelsea. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then they've got maybe an easier run in for the last few games. But geez, they could be well in dire straits by then. They're just so lacking in confidence and lacking in any sort of heart or any sort of belief. Do you know what I mean?
Really lack of pace in midfield as well.
Really lack of pace. I think Noble is at this stage. He's a championship player, and maybe. Look, Haller hasn't worked out for them. Anderson, I know he's injured now. He'll come back to him, but he's been very poor all year. They've been poor in defence. Moyes doesn't seem to have inspired any sort of response in them the way, say, Pearson has for Watson, for Watford. Yeah. If you just even look at their fans, if you ever watch the West Ham football TV, they're going in day out and they're watching. They're so sure they're going down, and I'm just surprised. Maybe it's just because of the name alone that they're 11-8. I know we've got the likes of Villa aren't great. Norwich aren't any great shakes. And who was the other team in the Bournemouth? Bournemouth haven't got great fixtures, but I have a feeling about the likes of a Bournemouth, and even the likes of a Bournemouth have the spirit. They have the spirit in them that maybe that they can pull out results. Where just West Ham, they're so lacking in spirit, for so long. And with their run of fixtures and how close they already are to the drop. I have to say that 11-8, I'm going to have to put 2 points in that.
I think the price is a fair price. I agree with you. As fixtures and master, they do have bad fixtures, but I think if you look at a lot of teams' fixtures this time of year, you can get bogged down a little bit for bets, looking where are they going to get points out of, and it often doesn't work like that. Where you've seen Palace over the last couple of years, or even West Ham years ago, where they can get big results. Do you remember even Everton with Duncan Ferguson? And look at the 4 fixtures they have coming up now against United and Arsenal at the time, and Chelsea, and they picked up whatever 5, 6, 7 points. It can often surprise you.
True, but he came straight into Everton, and big Everton man, and fans love him. He's obviously respected, beloved figure in the club, and he had that immediate effect. Now Moyes came in, they beat Bournemouth 4-0, and they've been shocking ever since. Do you know what I mean?
I thought a real bad result from was when they lost at home to West Brom's second team, basically, that FA Cup.
Unbelievable.
That was a worrying. But 11-8's fair, for sure.
Fair. But you're looking, I suppose, you see, the thing about it is, I do think with those fixtures, obviously, I suppose in the scenarios, a lot of those teams are going to be playing in Europe at that time, and it might be distracting. But most of those teams are still fighting for. Well, Liverpool want to get the. Well, they're going to win anyway. But City probably want to make sure that they're in the top 4 before any. If they're in the Champions League, so they can rest players and so on. So they want to get that out of the way too before bigger Champions League match comes up. And then the likes of Spurs, Chelsea, Wolves, they're all Arsenal. Well, maybe not Arsenal, but those teams will be fighting for United. They're going to be fighting for Champions League places as well. So I know what you're saying. But you can get bogged down with fixtures and that, but it's the lack of spirit. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I know.
They had a new manager come in. He's going to be there for the rest of the season, and there's no sign of him really improving them. Yeah. So 11-8 for me, 2 points in West Ham. And you know something, I'm just going to add another one there, where every year, well, almost every year, there's always a team who may be in dire straits around this time of year, and pull string a few big results towards the end of the season and go on a bit of a run. And I just don't think Norwich are as bad as that 1-10 suggests. That I just don't think they're that bad. Like at the start of the season, they were leaking goals. And they have, even though they've had an awful lot of draws of late, I think it was a 0-0 against Newcastle the other day. They're not leaking goals as badly as they were, and they've been unlucky with results. They've conceded late goals and things like that. But it's just a fact that I think there's good spirit. Do you know what I mean? There has been spirit all the way through. They're 7 points off, but we've seen it happen before. And their run of results, they've a different kind of run of fixtures than the likes of maybe
They've got some decent home games left.
Look, they're probably going to go down. I know you'll be happy if they go down because you backed them at the start of the season, but I think it's 17-2. I don't think the race is run yet, so I'm going to put a point on them. And plus they have kinder. They've got a few kinder fixtures than
the rivals.
Than the rivals, yeah. So look, 1 point on Norwich at 17-2 to stay up to basically. To save themselves, Right, look, it's that time now when we move on to the big European tournament, the Champions League. I think everybody's really excited about it coming back, next week, and I'm sure you are as well. I'm sure you've got a few good bets for us too.
Yeah, great to have it back. Spread out over the next few weeks. I suppose looking into the matches and the outrights over the next few months, it can be tricky enough for how much do you read into their domestic form and so on. If you look at the last couple of years, Liverpool won last year, Madrid the year before. There's always been a team has come from the not always last 2 years. There's been a team has come from the pack and reached the semi-finals at big odds. Likes of Ajax was last year, Spurs even as well.
Spurs, of course.
Ajax last year. You had the year before where Roma got to that semi-final, where they lost Liverpool, so you can get if you get a winnable last 16 game, it can open up a bit for you. So spotting that is the thing. I think the way the fixtures were worked out matches for the last 16 make that a little bit harder to spot, with a lot of you saw the big hitters kind of got decent draws, to rule out those. But it starts on Tuesday night with Atletico at home to Liverpool, and then and Dortmund at home to PSG. Then Wednesday night you've got Atalanta at home to Valencia, and you've got Spurs at home to Leipzig, and then you've got the other 8 teams playing the week after. Of the match betting for the last 16, the game that stands out to me is that for being the best game or entertaining game is Dortmund and PSG. The first leg's in Germany. Now it's hard to know. The problem is there are 2-legged games, and do you go hard at the first leg, or do you try to get an overall thing for both games? But either way, I think both legs, Dortmund PSG, does the one thing that stands out for me there are just goals. I think one of the legs, if not both of them, will be scoreline like 3-2, 4-2, something crazy like that. I think Dortmund have proven for the last few months that they actually can't defend whatsoever. They signed Haaland from Salzburg, and he's been scored 7 or 8 goals already for them. Sancho's having a brilliant season on the right wing. They've Rice to come back in. They have plenty of attacking ability, but their defence is just brutal. The last 2 games they lost 4-3 to Leverkusen, they lost 3-2 to Werder Bremen in the Cup. Even before that, a few weeks ago, they beat Augsburg 5-3. They won the game but conceded 3 goals to even before Christmas. They had 2-3 draws with Leipzig, who are a good side, and then Paderborn, who are down the bottom of the league. So it doesn't matter who they're playing, what level team they're playing, they're conceding a lot of goals. I rate PSG very highly with their attack. Their weakness will be at the back as well. I just think that's just set up for goals. Now the markets, the bookies have been onto this, because over 2 goals when Tuesday night, for example, is 1-2 shot, which is probably, you'd want to be putting something else in with that. Maybe if you have something else to put in with that, I'd say it's a great bet. I'm just leaving as a single. I'm going for the over 3.5 goals market. I just think there's. I just think it'll be goals. I'm going to have 2 points on over 3 goals at 13-10.
Well,
I wouldn't call it.
On face value, it seems like a skinny enough price.
Yeah, it is. But there's a reason why it is. I think it definitely isn't a value. You wouldn't call it a value bet, but the other option is to go with the over 2 and have something else with it, maybe something short. To get it, and maybe that is a definite option for people. Otherwise, in those last 16 games, I've got a little treble, which probably 2 of the teams explain themselves. I've got 2 point to qualify treble, to qualify for the quarterfinals. Juventus, Barcelona, Liverpool. I'll come back to Liverpool. Juventus are playing Lyon over 2 games. Lyon are well back in the French league, having a dreadful season. Their best player and captain, Memphis Depay, top scorer, did his crucial before Christmas. Huge player for them. They are having a real poor season. Juventus will beat them over 2 legs. Barcelona are playing Napoli. Napoli, another team bit like who are having a really bad season. They sacked Ancelotti after they qualified Liverpool's group. They're having a terrible domestic season. They're they're close to relegation than they are the top four.
Things don't seem to be too rosy in the Barcelona garden either, though. Like,
no, they're not. No, I that's why I don't have them as potential winners. But I think they'll beat Napoli over 2 legs. Two legs. Yeah. And the other one for the treble to make it just short of evens, a 10-11 treble, is Liverpool. I think, you know, on the outset it looks like a tough game. It is a tough tie going to Atletico. I just think that Liverpool after the break, if Mane is right at all, I just don't see how they'll over 2 legs. I think Atletico have gone back. They certainly haven't. They're not at the level they were. They're having an average season. They're struggling to get in the top 4 in Spain. Simeone, he can't. Up front, Costa's been injured. Morata has been poor. And then their big money sign, João Felix, the Portuguese guy, just hasn't done it. So,
could you argue though that Atletico are the type of team that if there is a team that this Liverpool team would struggle against, that it could be, you know, we've seen, you know, this Liverpool team struggle to break down very defensive teams. Now, it doesn't happen too often, but is there an argument that I know Atletico are struggling, but they're the type of team that can struggle can struggle against weaker teams because they're not that creative themselves. But they, you know, is there any argument there, or are Liverpool just that good? Just way too good?
It's good. I think if it was a one-off game, you could say Atletico that they could do that. If they could be, you know, they don't have Godin like they used to have as well. He was the heart of that. That what you think in your head. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know. But even just the way they set up as well.
But I just think over 2 legs, because even Atletico winning 1-0 next week, I'd be very confident Liverpool overturning that at Anfield. I just, the way they are and the way they're going to come into it fresh.
And plus, Liverpool aren't as vulnerable to, say, the away goals the way City are, because they just defend so well. Like City, we've seen that City team lose on away goals. A few times, you know, a few seasons in a row.
I just think Liverpool will come into it perfect. They're just playing Norwich Saturday evening, then they're into the game. So those 2 games. I have 2 points on Juventus, Barcelona, Liverpool treble to qualify from their games at 10-11. I spoke about Dortmund's goals. Other than that, Smeg, outright wise in Champions League, I think the top market players, are a little bit short for me. They will be, say, City, Liverpool, Barcelona, Munich. I think are the first 4 in the market. I'm not gone on those prices on those teams, and a little bit more value. I'm going to have. I really like PSG. I have done for the last couple of years. I know you said, you know, Colin, you know, the term bottlers and so on last couple of years, but like, sure, the referee robbed them with United last year with the, you know, the decision to give a penalty for you know, a referee's penalty.
True, yeah.
They've had, they went out to Madrid and Barcelona 2 years before. They've had Neymar out for those games. They're a better side now anyway, because they've got even Idrissa Gueye in midfield with Verratti. They've signed for everything. That's the type of guy they needed. They have up front just Neymar, potentially Icardi, Di Maria, Mbappe, even Cavani's just going to be a sub. Like, you know, you've got Cavani and Icardi are probably subs like in this top 4 day. They've just got too much up front not to be a serious contender. I think they'll beat Dortmund as well, so that's them in the quarter final. So I'm going to have a 1.5 points on PSG outright at 7-1, and my other one I think is a little bit of value in Juventus at 11-1. I don't really. They've not gone as well as they have been other years league wise. They've lost 2 of their last 3 games. I think Zari's under a bit of pressure, but this is their tournament, and Ronaldo's in his best form he's been in about 2 years at the moment. I think they have guys who can open up things in Dybala and Pjanic. They have Bonucci, De Ligt, Alexandro at the back. I think they're just they could be a side who could beat anybody on 1 or 2 days. I just think 11-1's a little bit. They're going to beat Lyon as well, by the way, so they're going to be in a quarter final. 11-1 could come to 8-1, and I just think the value is probably with them now. You know,
fair enough, but I still think that the English teams are like Liverpool. Liverpool are 4-1. You know, they are such a quality team, and they and Man City as well. I think Man City are going to go hard at this one, man. They've got to
play Madrid. They've got to play Madrid first, you know. Real top of La Liga, Zidane.
I know. Yeah, I know that's fair. Like, it's a fair point, but
that's what would turn you off. Like, I think, like City, say whatever 7-2, whatever. and they have to still play Real Madrid. It's just not.
Yeah, but like, what about the Spurs? Spurs are 33-1 in some places, and you know the Jose factor. They still have, you know, they still have most of the same players as last year. I know Kane is going to be out. I mean, they obviously are just off the back of the Man City win, which is a big confidence boost for them. Like at 33-1, like I think we were talking about them this time last year.
Yeah, well, it comes back to the point we said about Ajax and Roma getting the semi-finals last couple of years, and giving anyone who backed them value. Like, you know, Spurs will be one because they're playing Leipzig in the next round.
Exactly.
I think the other two teams to look at maybe are at big odds. Are the fixture Atalanta, the Italian side, and Valencia, the Spanish side. Valencia qualified in Chelsea's group, if you remember. They're not doing great in Liga. Atalanta surprised everyone in Italy last year, came the top 4. They got through by the skin of their teeth. They were Man City's group on the last day on 7 points, which is poor, but they're going well again in Italy. Beat Milan 5-0 last month, to beat Torino 7-0 a few. So they're a decent side. They're got Valencia in this last 16 round, and let's say if it opened up and the winners of that game got the Spurs Leipzig game, you know, you could take a risk on one or two of them.
Absolutely,
you know, I wouldn't turn off somebody having a half point on. You can get Atlanta at 50-1, you know, as an each way bet, or Valencia even they're 80-1. I think Atlanta are actually better than them. But
Jeez, the more I think about it, the more I'm just thinking fucking Spurs at 30.
You go Spurs, yeah, go.
Look, and I'm just going to go a half point each way on Spurs to repeat last year, because the fact that they're playing Leipzig, that's very winnable.
It is, yeah.
They're going to be in the quarterfinals, and just then it comes. They have quality players in their team. And it's the Jose factor, you know.
He was over in Germany at there. Yeah. Munich played Leipzig, and he was at that game on Sunday as well because Spurs were off. And you know, another little advantage. But yeah, so you go ahead. You're having a half point each way on Spurs, and I'm going to leave it. I'm going to leave it on the 1.5 point on both PSG and Juventus outright at 7 and 7s and 11s.
Right, fair enough.
So other than that, I think that's pretty much the Champions League. Actually, the one other market people interested in the top scorer market is unfortunately is pretty much done because Lewandowski has 10 goals. He scored 4. I think he got 4 goals against Red Star Belgrade and won the games.
Yeah.
So Lewandowski's on. Is, you know, he's just, you know, he just basically has that, and the way he mightn't have it is if Chelsea knock out Munich, maybe again, but he's a 1-25 shot. That'll tell you where that is. But it's actually the first year since 2007 that Ronaldo or Messi aren't going to be top scorers in the Champions League. They actually both having fine seasons. Really, they're not really. It's not about they just didn't score at that time of the year in the Champions League.
Yeah, exactly.
I think out of the last 12 seasons, Ronaldo's won at 6 and Messi's won at 5, and the other one they both shared it. Like, it shows the dominance they had. But I suppose 2 long shot bets I'm having on the top scorer, on maybe a hope that Lewandowski loses to Chelsea or he gets injured. One I'm going to have is Mbappe, who has 5 goals scored in it at the moment.
Yeah,
at 33-1. You know, as I mentioned the Dortmund defence.
If he comes out of the match with Dortmund, you're talking about the defence with 3 goals and 2 out of 2 legs. Yeah. Then it's definitely open. Yeah,
and he has the ability to do that. You mean he's someone who could score a hat trick. Yeah, need to have someone who's going to do that
or more.
Yeah. So I'm Mbappe, and the other one is actually we'll link in with. You think Spurs might have a decent run? I think they'll beat Leipzig as well, and just with Kane injured, you can see in the league, just Son, like, he's on the penalties at the moment as well. He took a penalty there last week for Spurs.
Yeah.
He's on 5 goals as well, by the way. He's got 5 goals pre-Christmas. He's 80-1. Of course it's 80-1 for a reason maybe, but he's taking the penalties. He's going to be playing kind of more central. They've got a good draw. And he's a good goal scorer. He scores 20 goals for the last 3 seasons in all competitions.
Well, I'll put it to this way. I'm not going to back that, because if Son ends up being the top scorer, that means my 33-1 shot is probably at least placed for me. So But other than that, it's hard to get another angle on the market with Lewandowski obviously having the 10 goals already. Of course,
so. But
they're big prices, so just,
way, so a half point on Mbappe and a half point on Son at those massive odds.
Brilliant.
And then we'll see how the matches go, the first leg matches go next 2 weeks.
Brilliant stuff. Okay, so that's the football bets wrapped up. Now we just talked about the Champions League bets there. We've got the speculative bets on the goal scorer market: half point Mbappe at 33-1 and a half point in Son at 80-1 with Powers, 1.5 points on PSG outright at 7-1, and 1.5 points on Juventus at 11-1, and then we have obviously over 3 goals in the Dortmund PSG match at 13-10, and a 2-point treble on Juventus, Liverpool and Barcelona, all to qualify at 10-11. So thanks for that, Ronnie.
So that's the football tied up for the moment, Smeg. Of course, you were busy last month with the Australian Open. I was keeping an eye on it, and I suppose it came down to the final, and Djokovic retained his title. He beat your man Dominic Thiem in the final. He won the last 2 sets to win his, I think it's his 8th Australian Open.
Yeah.
And in the women's 15th seed, Sophia Kenin won her first Grand Slam against your friend Muguruza, and she also beat Barty, the number 1 seed in the semi-final, did she?
Yeah.
That's
right.
So that was the final. What was your general thoughts on the competition, and if, as a competition, and then maybe from a betting point of view, what did you learn going forward?
Yeah, well, look, I suppose from the betting point of view, it was fairly bittersweet for me, because a lot of my quarter mark, I had Barty to win her quarter. She won it at 2-1, and I had Federer. Got very lucky with Federer winning his. He saved 6 match points against Tennis Sanguin, who was actually one of my first round tips in a handicap bet. And then obviously he was 8-4 down in the tiebreaker against John Middleman.
Yeah.
But just regarding that, I suppose I talk about the women's first. Kenin, look, I didn't have her backed, and it was a bit of a killer for me, because I remember talking to lads in the WhatsApp group there that there was 3 girls in the semi-finals. One of them are Halep, Muguruza and Barty, and I had Barty backed at 18-1, and I remember laughing on the podcast that I said, look guys, I'm not going to tip Muguruza anymore, because you're probably fed up with me tipping Muguruza. But I actually ended up backing her on the exchange at 90-1, and then I had Halep as well, and I said, well, the nightmare result for me there would be Kenin. But Kenin didn't, or Kenin, look, if she deserved to win it, she had played the final fearlessly, and ultimately Muguruza, look, the killer about Kenin for me is that I tipped her up at 200-1 to win Wimbledon, and it's just a killer that two slams later she's winning the Grand Slam. It's just timing can be a killer sometimes. But look, Muguruza, she's just one of these. One thing I've learned about her is maybe when you see Muguruza at these big prices, don't even back her each way, because she could bail out early, but if she goes deep, she's in really good form, and she's capable of beating a lot of the big players. And because she has such a reputation as being a Grand Slam champion, it's not like your ordinary 50-1 shot there who might be ranked in the 20s that goes on a good run. Muguruza is so highly rated that you'll end up probably getting a really good price to cover, which I did happily. That's why it was bittersweet. I managed, because Kenin was actually 6-4 in the final, so I managed to put a big bet on Kenin there to cover and win either way. Regarding Djokovic, look, he's a warrior. We know that. He loves Australia. 8 finals, 8 wins. Probably, in my view, the greatest tennis player of all time. Yeah. But what we take back from that is that we did also tip up Dominic Thiem at 40s to win. I mentioned him on the podcast that he was 25-1, and he was actually available on the exchange at 40s. So I got him at 40s, but we had him again in 40s in the US Open. That should suit him a bit more. But what I learned about him, he really needs. He would have been able to beat Djokovic. I think Djokovic is actually on the wane. I think he's not playing the kind of beast mode tennis. The last time he played beast mode tennis was in the Australian Open final last year. He's on the wane, a little bit on the wane. He still has more slams in him, but I think he's what's the word I'm looking for? He's attackable now at this stage. For someone like Thiem, he needs to learn not to expend energy in early rounds. He went 5 sets with a fella, Alex Bolton, I think in the second round, that he had no business going 5 sets. He needs to do what Federer and Nadal and Djokovic have all done easily. And he ended up being really tired. Obviously he had a really hard quarterfinal against Korver, but if he had more energy in the tank, I think he would have been able to take Djokovic out, but he didn't, and Djokovic battled through. But look, it's going to be interesting come the French Open. Is Thiem going to be good enough to take out Nadal? I'm not going to be putting any prices there. And then obviously we got the still have the slam race with Novak closing in. Nadal only has one more to get the Federer. So look, they're getting old, but they're still in there fighting. So it'll be interesting. And I'll just say that keep an eye on the tips, guys. On there's always small tournaments every week, and then every week. So keep an eye on the tips on Saturday and Sunday. We had one finalist at 20-1, Gerasimov, last week, but didn't make much profit on it either. But the next podcast will be Indian Wells. But we're going to make one ourselves, aren't we?
Yeah, but between now and then, Saturday, Sunday are the days you'll mainly put up the tips
just on the Twitter handle at Mug Podcast on the Twitter handle. So just keep an eye on that.
Good stuff, Smeg. Look forward to keeping an eye on that. Otherwise, I think we're going to come back together in 2 weeks' time, and let's see where the first 2 or 3 rounds of the National Hurling Football League are, and see can we get an angle on the second half of that competition as we head into March.
Brilliant stuff. Okay, so folks, that's it for now. Just remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel, a Mugs Game Podcast. You can also follow us on Twitter, Mug Podcast, and we're also available on iTunes, Apache and Stitcher. So please share with your friends and share on your Facebooks and Twitters and all that, and so we can get a few more followers and subscribers. But thanks for listening, and we'll see you again soon.
Thank you. Bye bye.